Hello, my friend. I'm Paul. Welcome to Night of Tales, a quiet refuge for imagination and dreams. Set aside your worries, as tonight we journey together through worlds of magic, mystery, and wonder. Lie back, relax, and let the tales carry you away. Tonight we venture into the monster-haunted world of The Witcher. The river Pontar was a boundary. It was a gray ribbon that carved through the heart of the northern kingdoms. To the south lay the dark forests of Temeria. To the north stretched the flatlands of Redania. The water belonged to neither kingdom. It belonged only to itself. It flowed endlessly toward the west. It carried silt and secrets in equal measure. The barge was named Morning Star. It was a heavy vessel. It was broad in the beam and sat low in the water. Its belly was full of iron ore from the Mahakam Mountains. Its deck was stacked high with dark pine timber. The wood smelled of resin and deep forests. It was a sharp scent. It cut through the heavy humidity of the river valley. Geralt sat on a coil of hemp rope near the stern. The wood beneath him vibrated. It was a slow rhythm. The hull hummed with the force of the current. The water slapped against the thick oak planks. It was a monotonous sound. It was hypnotic. The Witcher was not there by choice. He needed to reach Novigrad before the first snows closed the passes. The dirt roads to the west were choked with Redanian patrols and refugees. The river was the only open path to the city. It was the only way to move without questions. The sun was beginning its descent behind the distant tree-line. The light turned the river surface into hammered copper. It was peaceful. The air was warm. It held a stillness that felt heavy. There were passengers aboard the Morning Star. Several merchants occupied the small cabin near the rudder. They were men of business. They wore velvet doublets stained with travel dust. They counted coins. Their muttering was a low drone. It blended with the creak of the rigging. On the forward deck were others. They remained silent. They huddled under heavy canvas tarps. They were elves. They were refugees seeking safety in the confusion of the free city. They tried to make themselves small. They tried to be invisible. The boatmen ignored them. At least they tried to. But their eyes lingered on the gray canvas. Spittle hit the deck when the crew passed the hidden figures. The tension was a physical thing. It felt like a storm waiting to break. It was tighter than the ropes holding the timber. The captain was a man named Vimy. He stood at the tiller. His hands were large and scarred. His face was weathered like old leather left out in the rain. He chewed on a stem of bitter pipeweed. He did not light it. Fire was dangerous on a timber barge. Vimy watched the river. He knew every eddy. He knew every sandbank. Mist is coming. Vimy spoke to the air. His voice was gravel. Geralt did not turn his head. He watched the wake of the boat. The white foam dissolved into the gray water. Mist comes every night in this season. The Witcher kept his voice flat. He was a traveler. He was weary. But the journey had soured. 2 nights ago, a merchant had vanished. He had stepped out for air. He never returned. Last night, a deckhand was gone. No splash was heard. No scream tore the night. Just absence. The crew blamed the elves. They whispered of squid-tail assassins. They spoke of knives in the dark. They spoke of revenge for the war. Hands tightened on belaying pins. Eyes narrowed in suspicion. Geralt knew better. He had walked the deck at dawn. He had seen the railing near the starboard bow. He had touched the wood where the deckhand was last seen. It was damp, not with river water. It was a thick mucus. It was viscous. It dried quickly in the morning wind. It left a faint scent. It smelled of musk and rotting fish. It smelled of the deep river bottom. The barge groaned. The timber settled as the temperature dropped. The Pontar widened as the light failed. The mist began to rise from the surface. It was white and ghostly. It curled around the prow like cold fingers. The world narrowed. The banks of the river disappeared. There was only the deck of the Morning Star. There was only the fog. Geralt closed his eyes. He listened. He filtered out the wind. He filtered out the muttering of the merchants. He listened to the wood. He heard the water rushing past the keel. And he heard something else. It was a scratching. Faint. Rhythmic. It came from below. Not from the cargo hold. It came from beneath the hold. It came from outside the hull. Something was riding with them. Something heavy. Something patient. The Witcher opened his eyes. The pupils were vertical slits. They adjusted to the gloom. He looked at the water. The surface was now black. It hid everything. The barge drifted on. The lantern at the prow was lit. It cast a weak yellow circle against the wall of fog. The night had arrived, and with it came the danger. The morning brought no sunlight. The fog remained. It was thick and wet. It clung to the wool of Geralt's cloak. It beat on the iron of the railing. Geralt walked the perimeter of the barge. The wood was slippery. The air was cold. The crew was gathered near the bow. Their voices were raised. They were shouting. Another man was missing. This time it was a guard hired by the merchants. A man of bulk and weapons. Dawn. It is the pointed ears. A boatman pointed a shaking finger at the tarps. His face was red with anger. His fear had turned to rage. The elves did not move. They sat frozen. Their fear was a palpable scent. It smelled like dry ozone. They knew they were outnumbered. They knew the river offered no escape. Throw them over. Let them swim to Novigrad. The crew surged forward. They held clubs and knives. Vimy left the tiller. He looked tired. He looked ready to agree. It was easier to blame the outcast. It was simple. It solved the mystery. Geralt stepped into their path. He moved with a liquid grace. He did not draw his sword. He did not need to. He stood with his arms loose at his sides. His medallion rested against his chest. The silver wolf head caught the flat light of dawn. Stop. The word was quiet. It was not a shout, but it cut through the noise. It carried the weight of authority. The crew hesitated. They looked at the white hair. They looked at the scar crossing his eye. Step aside, mutant. This is human business. The boatman sneered, but he did not step closer. Geralt ignored the insult. He turned his head slightly. He pointed to the gunwale. Look. He guided their gaze to the side of the barge. The wood was marred. There were gouges in the hard pine. They were deep. They were parallel. 4 lines. They stripped the varnish down to the raw grain. It looked like a giant hand had dragged itself up from the water. And there was the slime. It was fresh. It glistened with a pale green hue. It sizzled faintly against the wood. It was acidic. No elf made that. No man made that. Vimy stepped closer. He looked at the marks. He touched the slime with the tip of his boot. The leather smoked. He recoiled. What is it? The captain looked at the Witcher. The anger drained from his face. It was replaced by a cold dread. A hitchhiker. It feeds on waste. Usually. Geralt looked over the side. The water was murky. It swirled around the hull. But this one has grown bold. It has found a moving larder. The Witcher leaned over the rail. He looked at the stern, specifically at the rudder mechanism. The barge had a false bottom. It was a common modification for smuggling. It created a gap between the true hull and the water. A perfect cavity. A dark, wet cave. A Zeugl. A large one. The name meant nothing to the crew, but the tone of his voice did. It promised violence. It promised a monster from the stories told to frighten children. The anger of the crew shifted. It turned from the elves to the water. They backed away from the railing. They looked at the river as if it were boiling. Can you kill it? Vimy asked the question. His voice was steady now. He was a practical man. He dealt in solutions. I can, but not while we're moving, and not in daylight. The beast would be dormant now. It hated the light. It would be resting in its cocoon beneath them. It would be digesting. Tonight, we drift. Keep the deck clear. Tell the elves to stay down. Tell your men to stay inside. Geralt turned away. He had work to do. He needed to prepare. The silence returned to the barge. But it was different now. It was the silence of anticipation. The river flowed on. The mist swirled. The morning star carried its passenger toward the twilight. The day passed slowly. Every creak of the hull made the men jump. Every splash of a fish stopped their hearts. They waited for the dark. Night fell heavy on the Pontar. The moon was a sliver behind the clouds. The darkness was absolute. The mist returned. It was thicker than before. It muffled the world. It dampened sound. Geralt sat in the cargo hold. He was alone. He had cleared a small space among the crates of ore. The air here smelled of iron and dust. A single tallow candle burned on a crate. The flame was steady. It did not flicker. He laid out his kit. The small leather satchel unrolled with a soft sound. Glass vials chimed softly against each other. It was a delicate music. He needed to be precise. The fight would be in close quarters, or it would be underwater. The environment was hostile. He needed to be ready for both. He selected a vial. The liquid inside was thick. It was dark. It was the color of old blood. Vampire oil. It was effective against necrophages. It was poison to aquatic scavengers. He uncorked it. The smell was acrid. It smelled of vinegar and sulfur. He applied it to the silver blade. He used a linen cloth. He wiped the steel with slow, deliberate strokes. The metal drank the oil. It dulled the shine. The blade looked hungry. Next came the potions. He took a small vial. It contained a solution that smelled of ozone and storm clouds. Thunderbolt. It would increase his reflexes. It would make his strikes punish the thick hide of the beast. It would make him faster than thought. Then he took the second vial. It was blue. It was deep and translucent like a gemstone. Orca, the killer whale. He held it up to the candlelight. The liquid seemed to glow. It was a difficult brew. It required the lungs of a drowner and the leaves of police fruit. It was rare. He did not drink them yet. Toxicity was a danger. It clouded the mind if taken too early. He needed to time it perfectly. He entered a meditative state. He crossed his legs. He rested his hands on his knees. His breathing slowed. Inhale. Exhale. His pulse dropped. He forced his heart to beat with the rhythm of the river. He visualized the anatomy of the Zeugl. It was a mass of muscle and tentacles. It had a beak sharp enough to crush stone. It lived in filth. It was filth made manifest. It had spun a cocoon on the underside of the barge. It thought it was safe. It thought the barge was its shell. Geralt focused on his hearing. He extended his senses. He heard the heartbeat of the captain on the deck above. He heard the rustle of the elves under the canvas. He heard the water rushing through the gap in the rudder. And he heard the creature. It was waking up. There was a wet shifting sound. It was the sound of suction cups releasing their grip. It was the sound of a massive body sliding against wood. Geralt opened his eyes. The candle had burned down. The wax had pooled on the crate. It was time. He extinguished the flame. The darkness was instant. He did not need the light. His eyes saw the heat of the air. He saw the outline of the crates. He moved to the ladder. He climbed up to the deck. His boots made no sound. He was a shadow moving within a shadow. The air on deck was cold. The silence was absolute. The barge drifted with the current. Vimy had lashed the tiller. Everyone was hidden. The deck was a stage set for a play no one wanted to watch. Geralt walked to the center of the deck. He stood on the hatch of the main hold. He waited. The silver sword was in his hand. He did not have to wait long. The barge shuddered. It was a subtle movement, a shift of weight. The bow dipped slightly. Something wet slapped against the wood. Then again, a tentacle curled over the rail. It was thick as a man's thigh. It was covered in barnacles and slime. It was pale in the moonlight. Another arm followed. Then the bulk of the creature began to haul itself up. It rose from the fog like a nightmare, a bulbous sack of flesh. Many eyes reflected the weak starlight. A gaping maw opened. It was looking for the next meal. It expected helpless prey. It found the wolf instead. The Zeugl lunged. It moved with terrifying speed for its size. The tentacles whipped across the deck. They sought to ensnare. They sought to crush. Geralt pirouetted. The movement was a blur. The silver sword hummed. It sliced the air. It met the first tentacle. The blade passed through cartilage and flesh. It met no resistance. The severed limb flopped onto the deck. It thrashed blindly. It spewed dark fluid. The monster issued a sound. It was not a roar. It was a high vibration. It rattled the teeth. It was a sound of confusion and pain. The beast retracted. It realized this prey had teeth. It changed tactics. It slammed its bulk against the deck. The wood splintered. The barge rocked violently. Crates slid in the hold below. The creature tried to sweep Geralt into the river. A massive arm swung low. It destroyed the capstan. It sent splinters flying like arrows. Geralt jumped. He cleared the limb. He landed lightly. He formed the sign. Ard. He thrust his hand forward. The kinetic energy erupted from his palm. The air distorted. A shockwave hit the Zeugl in its center mass. The impact was thunderous. The monster was heavy, but the sign was focused. The beast was lifted. It was thrown back. It crashed against the gunnel. The railing shattered. The creature tumbled into the black water. A massive splash drenched the deck. The barge rolled dangerously to the side. But it was not over. The tentacles were still attached to the hull below. The beast had anchored itself. The barge lurched. The monster was pulling the ship down. It wanted to capsize them. It wanted to drag the Morning Star into the depths. Wood groaned. Nails popped with sounds like gunshots. The angle of the deck became steep. The river water began to wash over the side. Geralt knew he could not fight from the surface. The leverage was wrong. The beast had the advantage of the river. It was in its element. He reached into his pouch. He found the blue phial. Orca. He uncorked it with his teeth. He drank. The taste was metallic. It was bitter. It tasted of alchemy and magic. The effect was instant. His lungs burned. Then they expanded. His chest felt tight. His heart rate slowed to a crawl. Thump. Pause. Thump. His pupils dilated until the night became as bright as dusk. The fog seemed to vanish. He could see every droplet of water in the air. He took a breath. He did not need it, but it was habit. He ran to the broken railing. The barge was tilting further. The water was rushing to meet him. He dove. The water of the Pontar was cold. It was shocking, but to the Witcher it was clear. The potion stripped away the murk. He saw the particulates suspended in the current. He saw the shoals of fish scattering in panic. He saw the hull of the barge. It was a dark shape above him. He saw the cocoon, a gray mass glued to the rudder. It was torn now, and he saw the Zeugl. It was wrapped around the keel. It squeezed the wood. It was trying to break the spine of the ship. It was thrashing in pain. Geralt propelled himself downward. He moved like a seal. The potion made him part of the water. He did not fight the current. He used it. He became hydrodynamic. He approached the beast from below. He was the predator now. The underwater world was silent. The violence was muffled. There was only the rush of the current. The Zeugl saw him. Its many eyes widened in the murk. It released the hull. It turned to face the threat. It recognized the silver blade. Tentacles shot out. They churned the water. Bubbles streamed from the creature's gills. It tried to create a screen. It tried to hide. Geralt twisted. He swam in a spiral. The tentacles grasped at empty water. He was faster now. The water did not resist him. He slipped through the defenses. He aimed for the central sac, the heart of the beast. The monster opened its beak. It tried to bite. Rows of serrated teeth snapped shut inches from Geralt's face. The pressure wave hit him, but he did not falter. The Witcher struck. He drove the silver sword upward. He put the weight of his body behind it. He used the momentum of the river. The blade pierced the soft underbelly. The vampire oil did its work. The wound turned black instantly. The toxins rushed into the monster's blood. The creature convulsed. It was a massive spasm. It shook the water around them. Geralt did not let go. He twisted the blade. He severed the vital arteries. A cloud of dark fluid erupted from the beast. It obscured the vision. It was ink. It was blood. The Zeugl thrashed one last time. Then it went limp. Its grip on the keel loosened completely. The heavy body began to sink. It drifted down toward the silt of the riverbed. It rolled over in the current. It would become part of the sediment. It would feed the eels. Geralt kicked his legs. He ascended. He followed the bubbles. He broke the surface. The air tasted sweet. The effects of the potion lingered. His skin tingled. His vision was still too sharp, but his lungs demanded oxygen. He gasped. He grabbed the trailing ropes of the barge. The vessel had righted itself. It was floating level again. He hauled himself up. His armor was heavy. Water streamed from his hair. He collapsed on the wet deck. He lay there for a long time. His chest heaved. The toxicity of the potion made his skin itch. It was a small price. The barge drifted. The mist began to thin. Steps approached. It was heavy boots on wood. It was Vimy. The captain held a lantern. The light was yellow and warm. He looked at the broken railing. He looked at the slime washing away. He looked at the Witcher. Is it done? Vimy's voice was quiet. He sounded exhausted. Geralt sat up. He wiped slime from his leather jerkin. He sheathed his sword. The click was loud in the silence. "It is done." The captain nodded. He did not offer thanks. He did not need to. The contract was implied. The payment would be collected in Novigrad. It was business. The sun began to crest the horizon. The light was pale gray, then pink. The fog burned away. It revealed the river banks. Green trees appeared. Birds began to sing. The canvas tarps moved. An elf stepped out. He was tall. He was thin. He looked at the broken railing. He looked at Geralt. He did not speak. He nodded once. It was a small gesture. It was enough. The river Pontar flowed on. It did not care about monsters or witchers. It did not care about races or wars. It carried the morning star toward the sea. The current was strong. The way ahead was clear. Geralt closed his eyes. The adrenaline faded. The sound of the water returned. It was rhythmic, endless. It washed away the violence. The boat rocked gently. The sun warmed his face. Sleep finally came.